And
Yeah,
people like, I don't have time to, read a book. I don't have an hour to watch a video, something educational. But you can spend 7, 8 hours easily in one day
yeah,
watching
yeah.
binge watching your show. Like binge watching is a word. That's a thing. It's like those were things when we were
One thing
growing
I
up.
know, at least the wealthy people that I've met, they don't waste time. If
Mm,
you've ever spoken with someone who is, whether it be wealthy, whatever you want to call it, rich, wealthy, whatever, they're always moving. They're
mm,
not in one space,
mm,
sitting still on one thing for too
mm.
long.
Right.
They don't waste time.
All right, so today we're looking at day 9, Time Thief number 1. Once again, if you don't have the book, Make Dollars and Cents, go ahead and grab that. Day 9, Time Thief number 1.
All right.
This chapter or this day, really, I mean, I think is really key to what we see going on in the world because you think about it, we were the generation that went outside to play. And I
Mm,
think maybe the early millennials actually went outside to play too. But now it's like I noticed when my nieces were little kids, it's like they spent their time in front of the TV, like literally all day. They had the little VCR on the bottom of their TV. They pushed the tape in there and let it play. And then they got
yeah,
the DVD players and all that. So it's literally they spent all their time right there. So then I'm noticing with that too, like there was no interaction with the family, like the kids in front of the TV all day. So you don't really, watch TV. You're supposed to be quiet, right? So TV's
yeah,
doing all the talking, all the interacting. Like I said, we were outside playing, but we were playing with each other. We were creating. We were, you know, um, changing game, making up games or whatever, playing game, interpreting rules. So, gaining understanding of things that you were doing. And that's actually the best way to learn is you learn something, then you do it. So now it
right.
becomes that you building that muscle memory. So I was just thinking about that when I was doing this chapter, like Time Thief number 1. And I was like, people spend their time in front of TVs, like adults with Netflix and Hulu or whatever your streaming service is. And
Yeah,
people like, I don't have time to, read a book. I don't have an hour to watch a video, something educational. But you can spend 7, 8 hours easily in one day
yeah, yeah.
watching binge watching your show. Like binge watching is a word. That's a thing. It's like those were things when we were growing up.
Nah.
So what you got to say?
Well, you right. Now I ain't gonna front. We did go out and play. We made up games, ghetto Uno rules, all this other stuff, right? Ghetto monopoly. I mean, everything was made up, but we abided by the rules, right?
Right.
But we did watch a lot of TV,
Hmm.
but it was after the activity.
Hmm.
So once we went out and did all day running the streets, playing and all that, again, circumstance that my mother worked 2 jobs, right? So there wasn't nobody home really talk to me, right? Other than the TV, and most of that was reruns from shows and all that other stuff. But to your point, by the time I got to that, it wasn't a lot of TV watching,
Right.
right? Because most of your day was consumed with being out, doing stuff, riding bikes, mob, whatever that stuff was. You did all that. You had rules. I would say most people would say, well, you're out and you're wasting. We didn't waste time. I
Hmm.
thought we were always doing stuff
Hmm.
that was somewhat productive.
Hmm.
Uh, now, and you right, hey man, I raised 2 kids. Hey, I ain't gonna lie. Throw that Dora the Explorer DVD in, and I'm gonna go over and take me a nap, right?
Right.
But the way it is now, you have to be very, very constructive with your time, particularly with these kids, because there is no uh, spontaneity with the activities that they do. Hey, you sit up in the house, go get bored. Man, I'm gonna go knock on such and such door, see if you want to go out and play. And then when we out there playing, we making up stuff, right? That kind of don't exist now. The kids look at you now to organize the play date. That there you go, play date.
Play
I
date.
hate that. A
Play
play
date.
date.
Like, what is the play date? What is that? Like,
It's and there's no imagination because
right.
the kids are 100% reliant on the adult to create the game.
Mm-hmm.
And we're old. We don't want to do any of that stuff, right? So you would go to a playground. I don't know if you've been to a playground with kids. You probably have. They
Hmm.
don't know what to do.
Right.
They kind of just stand around and they'll run for a second. Like, okay, wait a minute. We don't know what we're supposed to be doing.
Hmm.
And then now the adults have to come in. Why don't you guys play this? Why don't you guys do that? So there's no room to really explore, and they truly do waste time.
Right.
Um, there is no get a book and read anymore. I don't think kids. I know my son. He great go to college. I know he don't read anything, right? I mean, if it's a requirement, he will read it, but he's not reading it to learn.
Mhm.
There's no what I would call a natural interest or curiosity about things in the world around him.
Mhm.
The world is oblivious to these kids, right? So when we talk about money, there's no real fundamental interest in how money works.
Mhm.
Even when they get it and they blow it, they don't know where the money goes, they know where it comes from, they got it and it's gone. And they don't understand any of that. And I think a lot of that too just comes from it's just a society we live in. Everything's fast now. You want information, get on a computer, you can get it instantaneously. You can get the crib notes or the cliff notes of that instead of reading and
Really,
going in depth on it.
really, any book or whatever is right there online, so it doesn't allow you to actually think about
Right,
things. You know, you're just consuming, taking it in, but you're not really giving any output to what you're taking in. And
right.
I feel like that's a travesty, is a change in the human condition to me.
Yeah, yeah,
I was also just reading. As a teacher, we got to do some professional development and things
right,
like that. And then working on degrees, you got to just do some research on things, or read the research that's been done on things. And it was talking about how these kids have so much screen time that it increases like you're constantly releasing those endorphins,
Yeah,
in your mind.
yeah,
And humans weren't basically created to experience that amount of pleasure for that extended amount of time. You're supposed to have
right,
your pleasure, you have your downtime. It's like you have your sweet foods, you have your bitter foods. You're supposed to have a balance of things. And so the anxiety in the kids is increasing so much because they don't know how to disconnect, and they don't
right,
understand. And I think a lot of parents don't understand too, that screen time, when you see your child melting down and crying, it's because of that screen. Because you could do, I'm noticing myself that I experience that if I'm on the
right,
computer too long, start having anxiety and breaking out in the sweat and just becoming very anxious.
right,
And I feel like like I said, it's a travesty because even I read about what's his name, Bill Gates and
hmm
Steve Jobs and the people that have kind of created these things. They don't even allow their children to use the
right,
device
right,
and to
right,
watch TV, to that extent. Their children are thinking and creating and doing, manipulating things and
right,
doing all those kind of things, reading and
right,
talking. Like these
right,
kids, it's hard to have a conversation with them. It's like they don't even know how to
right,
talk,
right.
like.
And I think also parents have to create the space to engage and talk about things,
Mhm.
right? So one of the things I'm a real big proponent of, and what I try to do now, whether or not they digested anything I try to tell them, I would try to engage them and bring it down to some things that were going on that they could relate to,
Mhm.
right? That made sense to them, but didn't make sense to me. And I
Mhm.
would have them explain it to me,
Mhm.
right? Now, I ain't gonna lie, I may have kind of fudged and acted, played ignorant, but I wanted to create a space where there could be some openness and we could talk about some things, right?
Mhm.
And, of course, money always comes up because, I've been on a budget since 87. Well, even though that's a running joke, they see that dad don't just go willingly cut checks, right?
Mhm.
So when I see them go out and blow stuff, I want to create space. Well, why are you going to spend money on that when you
Mhm.
can do more of this if you put it here?
Mhm.
Right? You say you want to go here because you always talk about it. You want this all the time. Okay, got it. well, now that's the space for me to come in now and maybe drop a couple of nuggets on them to help them figure some things out. They don't pay attention all the time, but they can't ever say they don't know and they didn't talk about it.
Mhm.
The one big thing too, when you talked about Bill Gates, the one thing I know, at least the wealthy people that I've met, they don't waste time. If you've ever spoken with someone who is, whether it be wealthy, whatever you want to call it, rich, wealthy, whatever, they're always moving. They're
Mhm.
not in one space,
Mhm.
sitting still on one thing for too long.
Right.
They don't waste time. Time is money, money is time.
Mhm.
And a lot of them feel as if they're missing out on something if they're spending too much time with you. So if you ever talk to them, right, how long is the conversation? Right? It's not long.
It's
You
very
might get 15, 20 minutes.
right. Might.
Might. And if it's a social gathering where there are other people around, oh, that might be 10 minutes because they're looking for the next thing.
Mhm.
Right? If it's one-on-one, okay, but
Right.
they're looking,
Right.
they don't waste time. And some people could see it as being rude, but if you understand who they are and what they do, they're always thinking about the next thing.
Exactly. So
And
that's why
that's where the kids need to be.
and I think that's, now switching from the problem, switching to solutions,
Right.
we got to think about that too. Like, are you bringing value? Because your
Right.
value could just be simply questions that you ask. So then
Right.
you're holding their attention because everybody loves to talk about themselves and what they're doing. All right.
Right.
So, and the other side of that too is you said you engaged your children in conversation. So that's another way of being solution oriented. Right there is creating or paying attention to scenarios instead of criticizing like y'all kids don't this, y'all kids don't that. Well, no, you got to create that environment for your kids. So your
Right.
parent also does have a responsibility in what kids are doing and seeing, how this world has changed. So it's not the same as the world we grew up in. And because
No.
it is different, then you give your kids those skills that you feel like they're missing out on. So
Right. Right.
so,
And again, because they have to survive, right? They're going to leave the house at
mhm,
some point. And real talk, from an adult perspective, the light bulb is going to come on at some point where you're going to be less reliant on those who've been looking out for you. Now, that might be at 25, 30. I mean, today, it seems like older adults are moving back in with the older parents, right?
mhm,
But at some point, knock on wood, mom and dad, they gonna go.
mhm,
And if you don't have those skills in terms of your time management, your financial management, and all that other stuff, and you don't know how to talk to people,
mhm.
you're gonna be short.
You really are. You really are.
Yeah.
And that's one way too of separating yourself. Like, in this chapter, I think I mentioned here, because it is time thief number one. I think I said that the world has changed. It's not changing, it has changed.